Hi, I'm Rachael Rekart. I am the Director of Machine Assistance for Autodesk, and I'm here to talk to you today about how we have humanized customer support with AI. For those of you that aren't familiar with Autodesk, Autodesk makes software for people who make things. So, if you've ever admired a towering skyscraper, watched a great film, used a smartphone, or driven a high-performance car, chances are you have used what millions of Autodesk customers are making every day on our software. But I'm here today to talk to you about Autodesk's Virtual Assistant, or AVA. And I'm going to start with a quick introduction. So AVA, I could use your assistance.
Hi, Rachel. What can I do for you?
AVA, can you tell us a little bit about how you work?
How I work? To be honest, it's rather simple. Questions come in from all over the world, and I do my best to answer them. The commute is non-existent. It's great.
I wish we could all say the same for our commute today, but can you tell us a little bit more about how you understand customer questions?
I try to find patterns in user language to match one statement to a group of similar ones with the same underlying meaning or intent. I also use keywords or entities to help me decide the appropriate answer.
And you also can recognize body language, is that right?
I can see your face and recognize changes in expression. I'm learning to map that to emotional states and adapt my own language and facial expression in response.
All right, thanks, Ava. I appreciate you setting the stage for me.
Of course. I always enjoy chatting. It looks like you're busy, though. I'll let you get back to the room full of people.
So this is Ava, and I'm sure that you all had many reactions to her. Honestly, I have heard so many that I'm positive I can guess the first questions that came to mind. Like, why is Ava female? And why is she human? And is this really setting the right expectation for what this technology is capable of? Or is this the future of AI and customer support? In order to answer those questions, I'm going to walk you through our journey, because this is where we started. 18 months ago, with partnering with IBM Watson, who we've worked with throughout our process, we started with Auto. And throughout our transition from Auto to AVA, we grappled with these same questions. It was the key decision points at these critical crossroads that helped move us forward. So in 2016, we started with a pilot. Auto did one thing. He got customers an activation code. He was denoted by a simple line drawing because we wanted to clearly set expectations that he was limited in functionality. So we limited him in creativity. He was connected to our brand in name only. He was Auto for Autodesk. And we set expectations clearly on what he could do at the time, but left very little room for innovation or expansion. So as we evolved or expanded the capabilities of our virtual assistant, we moved from Auto to AVA. AVA gave us a more futuristic look and feel and set expectations as we evolved her more around what she could do in the future as opposed to what she could do today. As we went through this journey from Auto to AVA, we had to answer a key question around gender. And it's one that I continue answering again and again and again.
Apple has Siri, Microsoft has Cortana, Amazon has Alexa, Autodesk has AVA.
Yep.
Why are all of these assistants women?
I really think this technology is at the forefront. It's innovative, it's revolutionary, and I don't understand why it shouldn't be a woman.
Before we started on this journey between Auto and AVA, we did a lot of external research on non-gendered personas and on male and female. And what we found was that male was seen as more authoritative and directive, and female is seen as more collaborative and helpful. These are biases, yes, but as we looked at our first use case of customer support, we decided that we were trying to demonstrate the latter. We wanted to represent a figure that was both helpful and collaborative. But really, the answer is just what I said on Bloomberg. Why is AVA female? Because why not? If the future is AI and the future is female, why can't the future be a female AI? And really, when we talk about females in tech, there is a painful lack of representation. And making these female assistants the head of your brand, of your technology, you're actually enabling women to have a path that they can connect to as they're getting into an industry that has historically left them out. But I understand the concerns. I get questions a lot around continuing the stereotype of subservient assistants and females in the workplace. But what I would like to ask instead is, when you all think about the robot revolution and robots taking over the world, are any of them human? Are any of them female? So I really think it's time to flip the script. Now let me take you through the uncanny valley. So much of our communication today is nonverbal, from expressions to tone of voice, to eye contact. If you're looking at a solely text-based platform, you are missing a lot of what is essential to our human communication. The example I use that resonates most is if I text my boyfriend with, "I'm fine," he actually has no clue if I mean "I'm fine" or "I'm fine." Without that inflection in tone, without my facial expressions, I'm leaving a lot of room for misinterpretation and communication. So in order to tackle this, we partnered with a New Zealand startup company called Soul Machines. Soul Machines is looking to understand and recreate human consciousness through AI. And if there is an uncanny valley, they have helped us across it by giving us the ability to emote empathy and to read and respond to our users' emotions. In doing so, we're able to help build a more interactive experience and a more positive relationship. And we're actually seeing that in the results. The surveys around a voice and video version of AVA are actually 40% higher in ease of use and customer engagement than the regular text-based AVA solution. And the results externally are positive as well. So we're seeing AVA now being talked about in the media about being a next-gen digital assistant. And with our customers, AVA has had more successful conversations in the last year, 10-fold from when we started. And on top of that, she is doing so with a customer satisfaction rate of close to 100. Now, this is what I love about this technology, because you just don't get this with humans. If you give humans more work, their quality suffers. If you give AVA more conversations, her scores actually go up. With the external success and positive responses that we saw, we actually expected the same internally. And what we saw was the opposite. As AVA became a bigger customer touchpoint and brand interface, more and more people internally wanted a say in what she did and what she looked like and what she represented. But even though the problem was well understood among all parties, we differed in the solution. What was requested of me and my team was to actually change AVA's image to better set the expectations of what she could do today. And what I challenged them with is that I should be having my team focus on getting her capabilities to a point where it's in line with her visual representation. In essence, I had to flip the script because I wanted my team focus on solving customer problems or on working in the emergency room rather than focused on what the emergency room door looks like. But expectations weren't the only hurdle we faced internally. The next question that came up is this going to take my job? And of course, we've all heard this. This is not isolated to Autodesk. The robot revolution and them taking over the world is something we hear all the time in the media. But we actually heard it not only from our support agents, and AVA is a virtual agent or a virtual assistant, but from the owners of our incumbent technology, like websites and search engines that AVA could potentially replace. On the contrary, though, AVA has not replaced a single agent or an incumbent technology. She is actually used to augment them. So we hear this a lot with agents where your virtual assistant focuses on your common repetitive tasks so that your agents can focus on the more complex issues. The same is true with the platforms. We actually augment the platforms like we augment the agents. So we put a modular version of AVA on the platform to give customers more options and more choices rather than taking some away. Surprisingly, what we have found is that our internal agents are using AVA as a co-pilot as well, because it's easier to have a conversation with AVA than it is to go through the six systems in our back office to make the transaction and the update for the customer. So we're actually seeing adoption internally and externally in the use of using AVA to augment. And this is what we should expect, right? Machines and humans augment one another. You need humans to help a machine operate. You need machines to help humans operate better. This is a quick snapshot of a subset of my team, because what we've seen at Autodesk is not only augmentation, but also expansion of roles. So AVA hasn't taken away jobs, she's actually created new ones. My team has a very eclectic background and skill set. They range from the typical data scientist to computational linguists to creative writers, roles which historically did not exist in Autodesk or in my organization prior to AVA and prior to AI. Especially on the track of computational linguists, that historically in the industry was an academic track. You go study computational linguists, you get your PhD, and you teach computational linguists. AI and conversational AI has actually opened new doors for computational linguists that go to their PhD track and then decide they don't want to teach. Now they have other options. My creative writer got her degree in creative writing and social change, and she is now able to apply that in the tech industry, which is opening up whole new worlds for her. So, I can't really speak to how much AI is going to generate jobs as opposed to how much it obsoletes in general, but what I can say is we haven't seen it at Autodesk. The future, for me, is one of human and machine augmentation and expansion. Someone once told me that the most exciting and exhilarating future is the one that you cannot yet imagine. And I think that's very true for AI. Although it is an equally terrifying and exciting problem to solve, I'm excited for us to solve it. And I'm excited to see what we do as we make anything and make anything with AI. Thank you. I should probably leave that back. Questions? Yep. We actually decided, so genderless, when you don't put a face on it, people tend to see it as the onus is on them to do a lot of the work, as opposed to being a partnership where they're going to be fed the answer. When we did research and we put a face on it, customers expected that the answer was going to be given to them and found, rather than like a search list or like a Google chat, right? But the other thing is that we felt like we needed to make a choice on gender anyways, because we were going to move into voice, and we didn't want it to be a robotic voice. Any other questions?
Did you offer choice as to what gender?
As I expand outside of customer support and potentially outside of English, because today AVA's English only, I probably will. But right now, we're expanding so quickly in scope that I would have to make trade-offs for that choice of gender as opposed to having AVA solve more problems. So we haven't gotten there, but we've talked a lot about a digital workforce internally. And the direction we're actually leaning towards is in certain areas, like when we put AVA into our products, it might just be a symbol and then it's AVA's voice, but that way you don't necessarily need a human aspect to it. Yeah, that's okay.
The co-pilot, was that emergent or was it something that was intended?
No, completely unintended. We really thought that we were going to get a lot of resistance to AVA. And because we ended up designing her as very intuitive and easy to use, and honestly, we designed this technology because our back office, like I'm sure many enterprises, is such a mess. It's archaic and it's 5 to 50 different systems to do anything. So as you're building the APIs that sit behind AVA to do this, you're actually just streamlining the entire process. So it was definitely unintended, but a happy coincidence. Yep. Yes. Yeah, great question. So AVA introduces herself every time as being an Autodesk virtual agent, and she offers to get you to a human if you are expressing frustration or you asked to, escalate. But visually, what I did with AVA is I gave her purple eyes, which was very controversial. I got a lot of pushback around why I would give her purple eyes. It was like our biggest brand quarrel. But that is an instant notification that she's not human. So I use a combination of verbal and nonverbal cues. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let me say, as a result of switching from the first AVA to the new AVA now, because Auto was in pilot, so the numbers just wouldn't be comparative. But what I mentioned earlier was that we survey customers on the same exact interaction, and we say, okay, how easy was it to use chat AVA, and how easy was it to use voice and video AVA, which is the more human AVA, and human AVA scores 40% higher than our chat AVA. The volume of engagement, because human AVA is our latest release, so the survey scores are equal, but the volume overall is not. And how do you survey? We survey in multiple ways. So one is that if you go use AVA today, and only the chat version of AVA is open, the voice and video, you have to be an Autodesk customer. But you can give us feedback at any time. So there's a survey at the bottom of the screen that gauges ease of use, and then you can give us additional feedback. And then once we solve a transaction, just like we do with any human agent, we survey customers on how easy she made it, or if that actually solved your problem, or just the overall spectrum of scores, that we always compare AVA to an actual agent. So we survey them the same way. Yep. It's all supervised for us right now. We are still in the age of not trying to create vicious bots, so we are very risk averse when training AVA. But when we launched AVA, we actually got 20,000 conversations in our first month. So I had to ramp up a team very quickly to train her in an unsupervised learning standpoint. We're now at over 120,000 conversations a month. So I literally cannot grow the team fast enough to handle her increase in volume. So we are starting to look at other ways that we can train. We also train her not just on AVA conversations, but on human conversations. So we take human chat transcripts, human web cases, human phone calls, and we use that to help train AVA. Mm-hmm.
What about
Yeah. So I get this question a lot, and I really wish I had a better answer. When I took it over, it was a cost savings initiative. And the cost savings were so substantial that I don't have to report on it anymore. So the justification really came in itself. With AVA handling 20,000 conversations in the first month and very quickly reaching 120,000, she's doing so in an average of 3.8 minutes when our agent's average resolution time is 38 hours. And she does so with a CSAT that is similar to theirs. So really the return on investment was a given. But from growing the team, what I normally use is the time savings, which results in money savings to put back into my team rather than to do other things. Did that answer your question? Yeah. OK. Yep. Yeah. So AVA sits on IBM Watson, their Watson Assistant platform. And then for Soul Machines, we use Watson speech to text, and Soul Machines text to speech. One of the two. That way, I always confuse them. The AVA application is Autodesk internal. And AVA solves in a number of ways. So she's connected to APIs to help perform transactions, which directly plug into our back office. She can route you to agents, so she can get you to an agent chat or a web case. So she's, again, plugged into different systems there. She can serve up content. So she's plugged into our content engine. And we have what we call native AVA solutions, which are built into the application itself. Yep.
So going back to cost savings, I was hoping you could maybe expand on that. So you said that it helps your agents, that you didn't get rid of agents. So where's that cost coming from for cost savings?
So it's really on the time saved to get through the overall volume. So the time savings results in cost savings. But we're using the agents that we have today to actually then solve the complex questions faster. So it's not that AVA time savings results in agents we can get rid of. It's that AVA time savings results in agent time savings to get to the more complex things. So it's this bucket over here that then we use from a time equates to money standpoint. Yep.
So considering the spectrum of the issues that you deal with, like what percentage were you able to push off to AVA? And then the second part to it is on the complexity scale. Are they the lower complexity ones that you're able to?
We started with lower complexity, and I always recommend that. Start with one where you can get instant ROI out the gate, where it's a repeatable process that you do over and over and over. But as we've expanded AVA, we've been able to expand her complexity. She handles about 20% of our English volume today, and our overall volume is 60% English. But that she actually handles so much shadow volume where I'm sure like many of your companies, we can't handle all of it. That is why we get those really long lead times of questions answered. But a lot of times, customers just give up. They try, and they are unsuccessful in contacting us. So if our agent chat isn't available, it's just turned off. So we're missing that volume altogether. So AVA actually handles what we call shadow volume, which is opening the door to more and more of our customers, on top of helping cover some of the English volume that was historically handled by agents. In terms of complexity, like I said, we started with getting an activation code. So a customer says, I can't activate. She performs a transaction, validates who you are, and gets you a code. It's a very repeatable process. We have since gone to troubleshooting, and we're moving into technical support. We're moving into product recommendation and sales assistance. We're going to change the way we position AVA to actually be a routing agent. So she says, hi, I'm AVA. I'm here to get you to the right resource. That way, if she gets you to a person, that's acceptable in the customer's eyes. That's what she's positioned to do. But if she has the answer, she gets you to the answer. And it's a delightful customer experience instead of looking like a failure when she gets you to a person. But that actually opens us up to position her everywhere and capture every question so that I can train her on more and more complex issues. What we're really finding a sweet spot for us is are the multi-question or step or digression areas where you actually, it's a lot of if then, if then, if then, if then, that are really prime for this space. So we found in in technical support, 30% of the time you call technical support, they say, first step, uninstall and reinstall the product. So we put Ava in front of technical support, and she can walk you through uninstalling and reinstalling the product. That helps 30% of the technical support problems get solved right away. And that's just a multi-step. We need to know where you are in the process. We figure that out. We figure out who you are, what product you have, and we figure out all these different paths to help you, and we guide the customer down those paths. So rather than giving people like a 4x4 table or a 50-page FAQ, you can ask them one question and then get them to their answer. So that's where we found we have been able to move into more complex or unclear areas because you just use guiding and disambiguation to do that.
In terms of developing AVA, did you hire on developers with certain skill sets? Or I know Autodesk is a software company, so were you leveraging existing
Both. So the conversational engineers, my data scientists, I all hired on. But I also have software engineers that are working on the front-end application, and that is internal. As AVA continues to grow, though, we actually outsource that, and now I have an outsourced software engineering team. But yes, initially I did use a lot of the software developers to do our application development.
So you mentioned IBM Watson. What other platforms did you evaluate, and why did you pick Watson?
So we continue to evaluate other platforms all the time. My team is a lot of fresh out of college kids, and so I just continued market research in their repertoire. They were used to doing it in school, so we do it on a quarterly basis. But honestly, when we got into this 2 years ago, IBM Watson was the option. They were willing to partner with us, and they let us really have a partnership in which we're able to influence their product roadmap, and they help us with ours as well. I actually feel like Watson Conversation, they nailed it in that space. I think that there are other things like in the speech or the image or some of these other expansion areas where I will continue to evaluate all platforms out there, but I'm really happy with what we did with IBM Watson.
Did you actively do POCs on other platforms to do a comparison?
Yes. So we've looked at Dialogflow. We've looked at Microsoft. So Dialogflow is Google. We've looked at Microsoft, and we've looked at just doing open source. And open source was something I definitely am not interested in doing because I would rather have the other companies focused on the algorithms than have my team. I want them to be focused on training the algorithms and really understanding the disambiguation part rather than working on the tech. But from Dialogflow and from Microsoft, when I was looking at Microsoft at the time, 2 years ago again, you had to be plugged into their entire back office to really get the benefits. I know that's not the case anymore, but that's where it was at the time, so we didn't go that route. And then looking at Google, that may be a place that we look at in the future, but it's just, we don't see a need for it right now because we're very happy with Watson. Any other questions? Yeah?
What was the integration process like for incident management and ticketing and things like that?
For what?
So you integrated Watson and AVA into your current systems, ticketing and incidents and things like that. So what did that look like?
It's really, so AVA has been a cross-functional team from the get-go. So I've built the conversational engineer and the data scientist, but my UX resources come from our UX team. My software engineers come from the software engineering team. So it really has been that same process where we use a lot of different operating models. Sometimes I use a rotation where I get a subject matter expert in from that group. Sometimes it's going to be such a large workspace that I pull someone in to learn conversational engineering and then let them go back out in that space and they own that sub-little domain. The new thing that we're looking at now is actually called AVA teams. It's something that Amazon does a lot, where you let other teams develop on your code, but you still own the platform and you give them guidelines and stipulations. Because what we found our biggest problem with a lot of these operating models is giving AVA split personalities, because everybody codes like the responses in the way that they would speak. So giving her a unifying persona across all these different use cases and across all these different organizations is something that we need better governance in. So we're trying to start allowing ourselves to have more control there. Yep.
Maybe when AVA was still a little bit more limited in the use cases it could handle, and just spitting back the activation codes for like software activation issues. Like, how did you make sure it was still reducing friction, and or how did you like handle that handoff to like a human, when you knew it was a complex one?
Yeah. So that was actually a principle or a guideline for us right out the gate. When AVA can route, then she can launch. That as long as we weren't impeding people from talking to a human, there was some value in understanding their problem and passing that off to the human so that the human could immediately troubleshoot rather than trying to capture what the customer was saying. So that was one of our first tenets, is making sure that she has a failure strategy out the gate. And then around that, we built some guidelines around how often AVA will ask you to rephrase before routing you. If you can access a human at all times, which we decided yes. She asks you to rephrase one time, and if she doesn't understand, she gets you to a person. So we made some guidelines around that, but as soon as AVA can get you to a person, we find that the value of the insights we capture from putting her and allowing customers to speak to us in their own language. We actually had some really good insights around ways that we thought we were speaking customers' language and we clearly were not. So we have these things called product keys, and then you have your license number. And so many times we tell our customer, like, please have your license and your product key available. So they would come and ask us, I need my license key. And like every time we were like, we don't know what you're saying. Do you want a license or do you want a product key? And historically, it wasn't a known problem. It wasn't a known gap in this communication with our customers, because we always forced them to speak to us in the way that, like, you had a button. Do you want a license or do you want a product key? And so imagine being a customer and you're like, well, I want a license key. So which one of these do I pick? So it really, I think, is an industry term that people are used to on other software, so that's why they're asking us for it. But it was something that now AVA will actually disambiguate. You want a license key? Let me help you. Here's what a product key is. Here's what a license number is. Tell me which one of these you're actually looking for, and then I can get that for you. Yep.
Approximately how much did the AVA cost you to build? How many agents? And I think you already realized the ROI, right? Approximately how much time it took for you to realize your ROI?
So I can't answer the cost one, but I can answer the time one. So we did one use case with Auto, and actually the team worked on it for maybe 9 months. And once they decided there was real potential and ROI here, we moved from one scenario to 40 scenarios in 3 months. So yes, there's a learning curve, but once you get it, you actually can start to expand it fairly quickly. Mm-hmm.
You said you were moving AVA into other domains like sales.
Mm-hmm.
Did that happen organically?
No. Yeah, he asked if moving AVA into sales happened organically. So like I said, there has been bigger internal pushback than external pushback on AVA. But getting her into sales really happened because of her external success. So once customers, they know who she is, they interact with her, they're choosing to interact with her. Because AVA is actually an option today. She's not something where she's your only first touch point and then you can get to a person. We say, here's AVA, here's a human agent, here's a case, here's a phone call. But the way that we drive people to AVA is by putting the wait times on those. And they're accurate, they're just longer than it's going to take you to talk to AVA and get an answer, right? So being able to make that use case of customers are choosing to talk to AVA because she can get them an answer now, then I'm able to get her into new scenarios. And yeah, that's really how we've done it. And it will be the same as we did in customer support. Well, we'll limit it first. She'll be product recommendation out the gate, and probably routing. And then we'll look at sales logs to find the ways where they're asking the most repetitive questions, and then put that into AVA. Any other questions? Yep.
So as you look towards expanding your language beyond English, what does that look like for AVA, and what does it look like in general?
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about this. I've been waiting for the technology to catch up for a long time because I can't just take all the ways a customer expresses an intent in English and localize it and expect all that to cover all the ways a customer expresses that intent in Japanese, right? It's not apples to apples. But what we've done to bridge the gap to date is for things like transactions and content, we can localize that. We can localize fields, we can localize paragraphs. So AVA, if she detects that your web browser preference is something other than English, she will actually greet you in that language and say, hey, I can't converse with you in anything but English, but I can help you with these 5 transactions or with these pieces of content in this area. I think that the technology is starting to get to a place where localization is possible. So we are going to look at expanding AVA, especially in these what we call native AVA walkthroughs, where she walks you through troubleshooting scenarios and things like that, where it's step-by-step that we can get into a more localized state. But I still think we're a ways out from doing completely free-form natural language across all of our 14 localized languages. Yep.
You mentioned about internal pushback.
Yeah.
Organizationally speaking, where did the sponsorship come from? Was it like a COO, or?
It was actually our VP of customer support, surprisingly. So I started in the customer support organization. He was doing a little pilot around AI and then asked me to come and make it a full-fledged initiative. So having that support in the customer support space was really critical because he was able to help that message of, I'm not going to replace agents. I am going to help augment the amount of volume that we can handle as we grow as a company. But I think that's also why it's been a little difficult to move into other areas, because that executive sponsorship is important. We have since reorged. Autodesk has done a lot of restructuring, so I think a lot of those barriers have been removed for us. But I think that's why we were so successful in the customer support space out the gate. Mm-hmm.
What are computational linguists, and what do you have them do?
So computational linguists, good question, because I didn't even know this degree existed when I was hiring conversational engineers. They actually study the science of language. So they understand that the way that you phrase something actually elicits a different response than if you shifted words around. So they're looking at the order of words and the meaning of words and how you're parsing them together to create an experience. So a lot of my conversational engineers are computational linguists because I'm asking them to design a conversation. No. Nope, I only have one writer on the team, and she's very critical, but she's there for persona. Okay, guys, we've got 1 minute left. One more question? Yeah?
So you mentioned transactions.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of transactions does she do?
So AVA will help you get an activation code, get access to a previous version of our software, get a home use license software, do things like reset your password, change your contract manager on your account. It's a lot of account management, but it's not yet in the order side of things. It's more in the manage and use side. Yep. All right. Thank you guys so much for your time.